Welcome, everybody. My name is Herbert, and this is Tesla Today. We had several big news that happened just in the last 24 hours. The first one being Model Y is now considered to be the best-selling vehicle around the world as of first quarter 2023. Then the big news yesterday, of course, is Ford and Tesla have formed a partnership with Superchargers. This is super news. We've got Brian White joining us. He's the perfect person today. He knows everything about superchargers, gigafactories, and all the things that are happening right now. He hosts his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. You got to check him out. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for
Good
joining me, and
morning,
welcome back
Herbert.
home.
Yeah, what a great day to catch me. It seems these Fridays always have good news.
It's been a slow news week for Tesla. And then, of course, in the last 24 hours, a lot of things have dropped. We're going to be sharing a lot of good information. So stick around. Let's get going. So, the first one that we need to start off with is that for the first time ever, the Tesla Model Y is now the best selling car in the world in the first quarter of 2023. This is according to this research firm, 53 markets worldwide. This is going to be the first electric vehicle to ever achieve this feat. And if we take a look at the table here, Tesla Model Y is now outselling all other cars, including Toyota Corolla, Hilux, RAV4, even the Camry. And it is premium, right? It's expensive, right, Brian?
And that's the crazy part. Not only is it the first electric car, it costs about twice what the Camry or Corolla does. What's interesting to look at here is this is Toyota's stomping grounds. This is where they're the most competent. And you said, well, we got the Model Ys now. Tesla's done it. They can rest easy and sit back and just no, the compact's coming, and it's going to make the Model Y look not very impressive. And for that matter, 267,000. That's there was a time when Ford was selling that many F-150s in a quarter. So maybe auto sales are just down generally. That's a
Mhm.
possibility. So that leaves a lot of opportunity. I mean, the CyberTruck could enter that list as well. So we're looking at this is a paradigm shift. This is such huge news. And I don't know, man. I've just seen so many. The short sellers are out in full force. They're doing their distortion campaign. And it's just so vindicating to see things like this. And it makes me happy.
Makes me happy too, Brian. But if you take a look at this list, it's Tesla Model Y top now, but then it's all Corolla, all Toyotas. It's all
Yeah.
Toyotas right next. And this is like a unseating. And pretty soon, guarantee you, the Tesla Model Y will be top. The Model 3 when the Highland comes out, and if it's lower priced, I suspect it's going to jump from number 10 to even top 5. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
once the compact car, Tesla compact car comes, and then the Cybertruck, even, I don't know. We're going to see that's going
Well,
to be
the
the top five.
Cybertruck, it would only have to get above 166,000 units a quarter.
Uh huh.
That's entirely doable. And yeah, this is exciting stuff. The other thing to point out is I'm going to tell you right now that Tesla Model Y on your list is making more margin than the next four combined.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. These guys are not making as much money as you think they are, but the Model Y, it's double the price, like you said. So, anyways,
Let's double the price
great.
and 4 or 5 times the margin.
Right. Exactly. Great news. And it's going to continue on as we move forward. And this is, again, all cars, not just EVs. This is against gas cars and EVs. And now, for the first time, electric vehicle better than gas cars. I think it's symbolically important that that is now the case. So this is an interesting tweet by this guy named John Ehrlichman, 10-year stock returns, and he's just pointing out that Nvidia is now at 10,000% after what the big jump that happened yesterday. AMD, so these are AI, silicon kind of chip companies. Tesla's right up there, number 3, close to 2,700 percent. Netflix, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, blah blah blah, and the top 6. But what was interesting about this tweet is that Elon replied and he said, "For now." So he's very bullish, and it's good. It's good to hear that he's interested in the stock price, and he believes that Tesla is going to really do things great in the future.
Can you go back up real quick? No, 3 now. Oh, I see. 4 now. I get it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Anyways, that's interesting. Okay, so the big news yesterday, last night, Elon and Jim Farley held a Twitter space, and they announced that a partnership starting early next year will allow all Ford EV customers access to more than 12,000 Tesla superchargers across the U.S. and Canada. And so, in 2024 spring, they will let any customer afford using a adapter to be able to start using the Tesla superchargers. But by 2025, every vehicle, electric vehicles, the next gen vehicles that Ford makes will now have the Tesla connector, the North American Charging NACS connector built in, eliminating the need for an adapter to access the Tesla superchargers. So that's the big news. Ford published this, which is their ad saying, "Hey, coming soon, more locations to charge your Ford electric vehicle." I just thought that this was a an interesting image because they've got the Ford brand, but then they got the Tesla brand front and center, and they're like, you're peering through. You know what I mean? It's like symbolically, it's like, wow, this is a big deal. Let me just continue on, and then let's talk about it. The Ford press release said this, which we just announced, the 12,000 superchargers, and then yeah, so this is exactly what we said. Now they did say that in addition to the 10,000 DC fast chargers that are already part of the Blue Oval Charge network, this will give even the superchargers that we know is better than these other in destination ones. The Mustang Mach-E, the F-150 Lightning, and the E-Transit customers will be able to access the superchargers. Um, and then now they're going to have an app. It's going to be the Ford app. And Tesla said, Elon said that they will give the APIs so that the Ford app can actually do what Tesla app can do, right? You're just using a Ford app. You can open it up and see the superchargers around you, be able to kind of pre-warm your battery, so faster charging when you get there. Just know which superchargers are open and not, it's full or not, and just the wonderful things that the Tesla app can do. And then in 2025, they're going to have it built in. And of course, we know that the supercharger is absolutely, absolutely reliable. I think I heard a 99% reliability rate.
The
Do you
number
think,
I saw
Brian?
was over 99. So no, it was over. It
Yeah.
was like 99.5 or something.
Yeah.
But I have not seen many people who have difficulty getting to a supercharger, apart from on holiday weekends in especially busy corridors. There's, I'm sure, places where that happens, but for the most part, you and I know people who have road tripped extensively without any issues. My brother was saying he knows a few people who have bought the F-150, the Lightning, and they try to use it to tow to go out to these motorcycle race days, and it drives them insane because they have to stop 3 times and they have to unhook all 3 times. And half the time when they get there, even if they're not using it for race day, if they're just driving around town, they have to plan their trips because you get to a station, it doesn't work. So if you're Ford, if you're GM, if you're anybody and you're building an electric car, you've got 3 choices on how to pursue charging. You can build your own network, which is not going to happen. You're too late to the game. The cost would be crushing to try and build a rival system at this point. You could rely on third parties like EVgo and ChargePoint and all those, but it's a patchwork quilt and it's a mess and it's unreliable. So then there's only one option left. Do we go with the network that's bigger than all those third parties combined and more reliable? And all we have to do is play nice. All we have to do is
Mhm.
say, oh, wait, your charging system is better and cheaper. It's going to save us money. It's going to give our customers a better experience. And now we have some opportunity to keep the data because the data is where it's at. The future is
Mm.
all about data. So Ford gets to keep some of that data, which before was leeching off to EVgo or ChargePoint or Tesla themselves. But in this scenario, Tesla also gets to keep the data because even though it's their API, it's still their network. So they will still have that. So this is a little bit of a surprise to me, but it shouldn't be because it is a clear as day smart thing to do. My question is is there any money going to be changing hands? When I was in the Twitter space yesterday, I raised my hand.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
requested to speak because my questions were it was if I had 2 questions. Is money going to change hands? Is Ford going to help defray some of the costs of getting this network running, or is it just passed on in the form of higher charging rates. And my second thought was, because of the Lightning, because of the Cybertruck, does that mean Tesla's going to move heavier into pull-through charging stations designed for those with trailers?
Nice. Good questions, Brian. Wish you had been able to ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's let me get through a few more things just to give the news out. But
Of course.
there's so much to discuss of whether or not this is good for either party. I've heard somebody say that just the revenue you're going to get from the Ford customers paying Tesla for using the Supercharger, there's that monthly fee that they could pay to get the same price that the Tesla owners, I think it's $12 or something like that per month. And then if they pay that monthly fee, then they can just use the same charging price. But if they don't pay that, they pay higher than the Tesla owners. But just that revenue alone could already fund more superchargers, which they will need to have, right? If they're going to
Mhm.
allow other cars, which they already are, by the way, they've already opened it up to all EVs with a Magic Dock. But this just makes it so much easier for the Ford users to have that experience. So let me let's talk about that some more. But right, let's just give the quick news here. The Kilowatts did this nice little video a while back showing that the EV charger interface is how it's superior to the CCS standard that's out there right now. So let's go watch that video.
Android. At least for now, other EVs can't charge on Tesla's network, and in the inverse, Teslas can't charge on the CCS network. Being the first to bring a fast-charging EV to market, Tesla designed their own proprietary connector. With Tesla, there's just one form factor for both slow and fast charging. It's small, lightweight, and really easy to use. Just plug in and go. But for everyone else, there's this thick boy, a CCS port with a J1772 kind of port on the top and two high-power connectors on the bottom. It might seem like a small detail to some, but in practice, Tesla's cable is about 10 times easier to plug in.
Okay, 10 times easier to plug in. You can see the size difference. This is from Drew Baglino. He sent this out just showing you the size difference between the Tesla Supercharger and that CCS standard. It's much smaller and much easier to use. And then this is I guess this would be the Tesla Supercharger, and this would be the adapter that Ford can now start building into their cars in 2025. And so they don't need to, they can just be able to use the superchargers in effort. And then there's this video from Sandy Monroe. This was a long time ago. It says here 9 months ago. And let's play that video. But basically, this is Sandy talking to Jim Farley. And he asked them about this months ago. So let's listen to that video.
That we've been getting, actually it's the first time I'm going to mention it, but there's a push by many of the people who already own EVs, not necessarily Teslas, but other EVs, and they're trying to get the standard moved from what we have now, the SAE standard, to the Tesla charging port. Have you guys ever entertained that or thought about it or what have you? Because I mean, the Tesla charging port is so much smaller, and it doesn't have multiple whatevers. You just, and it's ready to go. The charging ports, based on what we know, we're working with companies that make charger. The charger for the Tesla is a lot cheaper, and it doesn't have fade. Like if you plug in over here, you get one number, doom, doom, doom. This guy over here is basically at the end of the road, and the charging goes down like a rock, which doesn't seem to happen too much with the Tesla stuff. Have you guys thought about that at all, or is that anything that's been discussed?
We think about everything.
I knew it.
But one of the biggest priorities we're focusing on right now is charging. And I think we take the responsibility for good charging experiences really heavily. I tell the team, it's not just that you gave a bad experience about Ford, you gave a bad experience about EVs, and that's a really big deal. So yeah, we have a very high gain on charging experience, and we're working really hard to figure out all the things we can do in public charging to make it better, and we'll consider everything, including that.
How about considering making your own chargers? Have you thought about that for chargers? Getting into that business? I mean, you can sell razors, but then you can also sell razor blades, and getting a little piece of that action. I mean,
So we do home chargers already.
Yeah.
And in the commercial space, we're starting to do heavier duty equipment.
So this is Corey Steuben sending this tweet out last night. And the point that I just want to point out here is he said the vehicle cost savings are huge. So Monroe and Associates, they actually costed out the difference between a CCS and an NACS, which is a Tesla version. And the cost savings for them are huge. So, Ford's going to save a lot of money. What you're thinking of, Brian?
Oh, I had seen that video when it came out. It was a big deal. Sandy ordered an F-150 Lightning, and when they saw it pop up in the order books, they're like, oh, we're going to hand deliver this one because Sandy is a special kind of customer. And he is. And this was a big deal. I didn't remember how candid they were with him, and that is kind of refreshing to see. But you could see even then the gears were turning. And Sandy said, well, maybe build your own network. And you see him pause, and you can just, it's all about dollars. It's all about logistics. It's all about an engineering talent pool that may already be stretched a little thin on the electric side. And they had to make a decision, and they made the right one. So it's kind of funny to look back at it and see that this was probably something that they were already working on. If not, they may have started the next day.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. I mean, some people are saying that they're upset that Tesla is doing this because they go, there goes the moat, right? So one of the greatest moat that Tesla had was the Supercharger network that no other EV car manufacturer even has. And the competitor that they have, the EV America is so pathetic. They're so poor. There's a tremendous amount of complaints because half of them, or more than half of them, they don't even work. Now they opened it up to let all EVs with the Magic Dock, and now they're partnering with Ford. What are the benefits for Tesla? What are the benefits for Ford? And what do you think about this moat discussion?
So on the moat, I think it's misplaced. The goal is EV adoption. This is how you get EV adoption. Most chargers sit idle most of the time. There are a handful of locations that are busy, and the solution is to build more chargers. They're opening a lot. I'm sure we'll come to that. So the moat, I'm not worried about that. What's the benefit for Ford? Tremendous. We've covered that quite a bit. It gives them instant access to a robust, reliable, and massive charging network. So what's the benefit to Tesla? Well, it moves the whole industry one step closer to the NACS, which is good for Tesla. This makes it more likely that the next Electrify America station is going to have an NACS charger at it. It makes it more likely that GM and everyone else is going to say, yeah, we need to switch over as well and get everyone onto what is objectively a better system. And the people who are saying, there's a lot of complaints I've read from people who I assume don't even own cars, that Tesla, they made this proprietary thing to create a moat. They did it on purpose to exclude others and be elitist. And that's not the case. When Tesla started designing cars, there was no charger. CHAdeMO only came about in 2010, and the Roadster was 2012? Something like that? What was it? So anyway, it was right in there. And then the CCS didn't come about until I think 2014. And CHAdeMO wouldn't have worked. It was a 60 kilowatt charging system. That's not adequate for a full-sized, serious vehicle with fast charging. So they made their own. And what they came up with for a first effort is magnificent. It's elegant. It's effective. It does the job. And then the CCS committee gets together and says, we're going to make a new standard. And Elon mentioned this on the Twitter space. Did you think of inviting us? No, of course not. We invited the Europeans and the Japanese, and who else is there? Did I miss anyone? Yeah, you missed 80% of the automotive world. And you missed the biggest players in electric vehicles. So yeah, this is just good, and everybody wins.
Yeah. I think there's so much I want to talk about. The first, let's address the moat thing. I think that is a massive moat. Absolutely, having a supercharger network, huge moat. But at the end of the day, I think that this is going to be a wash in terms of the loss of competitive advantage. We've heard Elon say many times before, it's the rate of innovation. That's the moat. And so you create the supercharger network, you create an advantage for yourself, but it's okay to let it go and let everybody have access to it. But if you continue to have better improvements, and that's faster improvements than everyone else, there's going to be many different kind of moats. You've said that before. So I think that it's going to be a wash because, right, every electric vehicle can now go to a supercharger network because they've opened it up. There's going to be less likely for massive investment from another party to try to replicate and try to beat Tesla, and so they're just going to basically fall like dominoes and partner with Tesla. Now that there's very first one is Ford, this is massive. It's massive because, right? I mean, it just means that the next one, it's like you just said earlier, that it's going to, it's much closer now to becoming the industry standard, and everyone will start to fall, right? The next one, and so now it's Tesla superchargers is going to be the primary out there, even though they let others have access to it. They're going to be able to do advertising. People will see the Teslas everywhere, and they see the Tesla brand, and they can see the superiority in every way. So I think it's a good thing. And kudos to Ford. I mean, I just love the way that they broke out their EV business, and they're being very transparent with their financials. And then, the way what Jim Farley was talking yesterday, I did feel that he was a bit, I don't know what the right word is, but maybe weak. It felt like he was, just pretty unsure about where, but at the end of the day, if you really step back and think about it, it's just like he knows where the position is of Ford, and he just outwardly expresses, which all of us can see, the how far ahead Tesla is. And so for them to have done this, big kudos. I think now that they're going to save Ford. And you love the way that, I don't know if you saw this, but Elon was kind of like 2 times kind of brought up the idea that, hey, we can do more than just superchargers. You need help with software. And so you can see that this is going to be just the beginning of a relationship of licensing things from Tesla. So it's inevitable. I mean, some people will say they weren't just being forward thinking, but they were forced. They're now forced to the corner. They need to do this because the cost savings, and just they can't not have supercharger networks everywhere.
Ford also, I think, is entering into a strategic partnership with Volkswagen,
Mhm.
whereby they'll be rebranding each other's EVs, which is a practice that's been around for generations and works reasonably well. For Jim Farley is not sheepish about. He's not embarrassed. He's not admitting failure. That's just his demeanor. He's just a very chill guy. So I didn't hear that necessarily. Everything is, in terms of what the announcement was going to be. I had some theories, but this was not on the list. I thought it might be batteries. I thought it might be software, but this is very exciting. And like you said, it's the fact that it's one of the biggest companies doing it first makes a huge difference in momentum. If this was Mitsubishi or Suzuki that announced it, I mean,
Yeah.
the first mover was actually Aptera. Aptera said, we
Mhm.
are going to use the NACS. They haven't entered production yet, so that's not as necessarily relevant. And even if they had, there's a world of difference, an ocean of difference between a couple thousand and a couple million. And like you said, even the $12 a month service charge. And if it's not that, it'll probably be $12 in profit. I mean, it's designed to be kind of a wash. You're talking 1 million cars a year is what Ford wants to do at some point, or at least 1 million over a number of years. That's $12 million a month to build additional chargers. That's a great deal. Of course, you'd like a direct contribution where Ford is actually ponying up some cash. But like you said, the Tesla logo is in everyone's face. It's, I am going to the Tesla Supercharger. You have to say that to get there. And that's marketing that's hard to buy.
And as I'm about to show here that it's more than just the fact that a Ford with the adapter can now go to a supercharger. It's also the API to their Ford app, and I'm going to show something that's what shows up on the Ford app, which I think is going to be pretty cool. Exactly what you just said. So before we get there, I want to share some things. I was following Tesla Charging account, and I saw some very cool information that I want to share here. So the first is, they always show photos of the brand new superchargers as they're opened up. And I just thought this one's really cool because you can see all the solar panels, you can see the mega packs here, and this is the future of superchargers. So it's practically free. The energy is free because it's solar. Then they charge people to fill up. Think about a gas station and the gas companies with the gas stations out there, but the gas is free. I just think that's awesome. Did you have any thoughts about solar panels on superchargers?
It's the easy, obvious solution. A question I always hear is, oh, where are we going to put them? Are we going to destroy more habitat to build solar panels? And building solar panels doesn't destroy a habitat. It transforms it. Sometimes that's for the better. Some crops grow better in moderate shade. Livestock often survives better with shade. But we have the space. It's right there, you guys. It's the shopping malls. It's the roofs of your buildings. And who doesn't? You love to be in the shade on a sunny day. You love to be out of the rain on a rainy day. More of these, pretty please. And in that picture, I think that was actually just the transformer or inverter there. But a lot of these sites do have the mega packs. And Electrify America has Tesla mega packs. They have announced it in, I think, 2020 or 21, and they've got thousands of them. So good job. But Electrify America, I don't think sees Tesla as a competitor, because Electrify America, from all I can tell, is not in the business of charging cars.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do.
More than 50% is always out of commission. So what the
Right.
hell? Why do they do that? Yeah.
Well, they're in the business of regulatory compliance.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is why they.
So this is what the mega packs look like in a supercharger location. We've all seen it. We've been to superchargers, many of us. And what was this is just Tesla mega pack saying you may have noticed mega packs at supercharger sites. With the mega pack, superchargers can reduce peak power draw from the grid during times of high demand. They draw energy from the grid when the electricity costs are low, and they store it, and then they use it when the costs are high, and they support the grid during the hottest days of the year. So there's a lot of benefits of doing this. This is the new feature that I ran into. I did not know about this, and this is April 29th, so just this month or just last month. New feature on our Teslas with this new software update. It shows us the pictures of the superchargers you're navigating to. Wow. So I'm going to show that video and see what it looks like. Yeah, so that's what I mean, right? So they did talk about that Tesla's going to provide APIs to Ford. So now you can use the Ford app, and very likely the visual that you see in the Ford screen, all these things, like, for example, seeing the pictures of the superchargers you're going to. So this is just the beginning, right, of software, licensing software within the Ford ecosystem. And then they could easily, at that point, increase it to FSD or something like that. What'd you think of
And
that?
what a great little feature to have, because I know a lot of people, when you watch reviews of superchargers and people talk, where is this one? Is it inside the parking garage? Yeah, it's not always, it's not like a Shell station where you've got a 130-foot sign out front that's pointing to it with blinking lights. The whole idea of the software is it's about time. It's about time. We've had the ability to do something like this for 20 years, and yet and Tesla's been doing it as much as they can since the beginning, but yeah, it just feels like it's overdue in a lot of ways.
Okay. All right, just getting set up here for the next bit. Thanks, Brian. Okay. So what people don't, and this is interesting information I did not know, which is Giga New York is the home of prefabricated supercharger units. So this is where they make it. This is in Tesla tweeted this out in March of this year. Prefabricated supercharger units. So now they build this in the factory, and then when they go to the site, they just lower it and connect it. So they don't have to preset anything. It's all kind of prefabricated. These are fully assembled supercharger sites. They come with the stalls mounted on a concrete slab. Wow. Electrical components prepared for grid connectivity. It helps them just get these sites up really quickly. I've heard, enabling construction to be within days, not weeks. And I've heard even like one day they can get up and going. So let's take a video of that. You can watch to see how these superchargers are built. Yeah. This is in Giga, New York, Buffalo? Yeah, New York. Yeah. So my point there is simple. It is so simple, elegant, but so fast. And so this whole notion that we're letting our supercharger network available to all EVs, but the revenue that will come in will pay for even more of these, and no one's going to be able to catch up at this point. Look how fast they can launch these things. So
it's not just fast; it's factory built rather than hand built. It's economies of scale. It's better engineering. It's cheaper handles. It's cheaper cables. It just works across the board. I had a chance to meet a gentleman who's in charge of all supercharger builds in the Northwest. He finds the locations, he coordinates it, he gets them put in. He was at one of the Oregon Owners Club meetings. And I asked him, where do the superchargers come from? He said, New York. I said, all of them? There's none in Nevada, none in Fremont, none in... He said, nope, all of them are from New York. And I also asked him, how do they compare with the Chinese-made ones, which are used to serve the Chinese market? And he said, don't know, never seen one. So the crossover is zero. And that would make sense because they're designed for different grids and all that. So, yeah, the New York factory, I know there's a lot of grief given to Tesla for, these massive tax breaks they got. And that wasn't Elon's company when the tax deal was negotiated, but he's made good on it. He's brought more than the number of jobs required, and it's a net win for Buffalo because these are good jobs in a city that has lost a lot of its manufacturing sector. So it's and it's a great product.
Oh, it's a fantastic product. Okay, that's just a few more information here. So there's now 45,000 superchargers around the world and counting. 45,000. That is growing fast because I just seem to remember it was 30,000 was the number. Yeah, it's going really quickly, like less than a year ago. So they're opening an average of one supercharger site every 13 hours. Every 13 hours. That's 2 sites a day.
That's great.
That's pretty fast. Now it's global, so I don't know how fast that really is, but it's just crazy. It's fast.
So I've got this new business, Herbert. We sell widgets. No. And my rate of expansion is we open one new retail location every 13 hours. You'd call that a growth story.
Yeah, you're
You
right.
you would be excited in a company that's growing at that pace. That's substantial. You'd
You're right.
wonder how. I mean, yeah. So no, it's a good number.
That's a good point because each of these are like a retail. They're almost always fully used. They're charging money every time you plug it in, and they charge you
Yeah.
even ridiculous if you keep plugging it in while you don't leave. And they're just making money. And like I said, if they do the solar, it's going to be free. The profit margin is huge. Some people are calculating just the supercharger business alone is multi billions. So it's pretty
Well, you
interesting.
can take whatever EVgo and Electrify America are
Mm.
worth combined, and the supercharger as a business of its own is worth more than that, because it's better run, it's better built, it's less maintenance. Yeah, it's worth more. So yeah, it's already very valuable and will continue to grow in value.
Here's a nice visual. They go how it started and how it's going. So this is how it started, right? Two in New York area, I guess, in the East Coast, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 in
Yeah,
California. That's how they
yeah,
started, and this is how it is going. Every part of the
yeah,
world, everywhere.
yeah. And seeing the expansion in Mexico is encouraging because when I was in Mexico last was probably 2019, and EV adoption there was very, very low. But gas prices are low, very low in Mexico, so that's certainly a big part of it. Uh, and that leads to it's a catch-22. Gas prices are low, so you can't get a good charging network, and without the network, you can't get more EVs, and it just keeps feeding back on itself. So yeah, no, that map is looking like some serious chicken pox right there.
Serious chicken fights. Uh, okay, so a prediction that I've been saying quite a bit, and I'm hoping it's going to happen this year in 2023, is that there's going to be a announcement of a partnership between a large retail kind of entity, like a hotel, a retail, that's going to partner with Tesla, going to say that every one of our stores is going to have a supercharger in it, right? It just makes sense because then, just like the way Hertz made that big announcement that they're going to have significant number of cars going to have Teslas, it's now embedded in many consumers' minds. They know it's Hertz that has Teslas because they were the first mover. I think that something like that's going to happen, right? Let's say it's McDonald's and says that from now on, every single one of our retail stores or McDonald's restaurants will have superchargers in it. What a coup that would be for McDonald's. And I think they're more likely to do this now. Now that Ford basically said that all their cars will have Tesla superchargers, and now they've opened it up, right? So now it's going to be the standard. And I just can't imagine a company like Walmart or Costco or Ford or not Ford, but something like that, right? What do you think about this idea that isn't it inevitable that announcement is going to happen soon, like some big national global restaurant or hotel or something like that?
I think it makes perfect sense. There's a few on the list that make less sense, though.
Mhm.
McDonald's is difficult because the parking lot is very full, and even disrupting it to add chargers could be problematic. But they're very tight. Zoning is different everywhere. But when you get to someone like a retail store, like even a
Target.
chain of malls, Target would be a great one, I think, because Target you can get in and out in 20 minutes. Costco, I'd love to see it, but you can't get in and out of a Costco in 20 minutes. That's not how they're designed. Uh,
Mhm.
so I'm not sure who it would be, but somebody has got to see this coming and say, yeah, this is it. It's time. Uh, but who's it going to be? And I don't know the
Yeah,
answer.
that's a good.
Food
They're
is a
very, very
great
good points.
choice, but
Mhm.
but what it there's was it Travel Center or one of those? Pilot is working with Tesla now, aren't they? I think
Mhm.
so. To add chargers at their gas stations. That's a good
Well,
fit.
that's what I was going to say next. Is gas stations make the most sense, right?
The
At some
most
point
sense.
in about 5, 10 years, 15 years, maybe something that certainly by 20 years, gas stations is a dying business, right? There's going to be less and less of them needed. I mean, it might take a long time, but It's certainly not the numbers that we see today. And so if you are, again, you're a gas station. So your whole idea is to attract vehicles to come to your place, fill up and leave. And then if their business model is mostly making money anyways on the retail part of it, people walking in and buying the food, that's where they make a lot of their money, then why wouldn't they just convert half of their space into, like do both and then eventually just get rid of the gas and become a supercharger location? It makes so much sense, doesn't it?
It makes sense. A gas station in an hour might aim to handle 50 cars where the same footprint could only handle 8 if they're electric. But the difference is with a gas car, you have to stand there the entire time you're pumping. And most people just hop right back in the car and leave. So most of those 50 or whatever number of cars do not convert to interior retail customers, where with a charging situation, you just plug it in and now you have freedom. And when I'm feeling free, I like to snack. So I think that's how
I
that
don't
would
know how it's structured though. If gas stations are, I think if whether or not they're just individual mom and pops that own one or two, and do what kind of deals they need to strike with Shell Oil. Of course, they're not going to want to do something like this, you know. So I don't know how that works, but
So
yeah.
Shell is transitioning, at least in Europe. It's still a very small part of their business. It's less than 1%, but they are in the charging business in Europe because they can see the writing on the wall. And at the end of the day, what they really are is a company that takes energy and converts it into dollars. So they're
You're buying into their
already-
marketing, are you?
well, but that's what they are is they're pure greed. And if there's money in charging, they'll do it. And if there isn't, they won't. They can get power from wherever. All they want is a margin. So how it would work logistically, because I know, I'm sure you've also known a number of people who own one gas station.
Yeah.
And I think the way that would work is the franchise would come down to them and say, this is a new opportunity. Do you want it or not? And if you do, we've got a team that will look at your permits and do us and swarm in on you if you need it. So I think that's a possibility. Logistically, it's not prohibitive. It just would come down to, it would just need a whole new way of thinking. And I'm not sure they're ready to do it.
All right. So this notion that Tesla is going to start partnering, or these OEMs, these legacy ICE manufacturers, gas car companies, they're being pushed against the wall. They're going to need to start partnering, and they need to swallow their pride and partner with Tesla. Right? Every month that goes by, you can see, you can hear, you can feel the pressure that they're going through, and so this is just the first step, right? A simple step, which is a supercharger partnership. But you know what I mean? Like, what's your sense that, and which car companies do you think is going to move first and eventually say, yeah, we need to partner with Tesla, whether it's the batteries, whether it's a skateboard, whether it's as simple as a software, of course, a supercharger, but it could be the FSD. There's just so many things that Tesla does that if you know that the writing's on the wall and electric vehicles is the future, you know that you can't make that leap, not do everything. But you also know that you've got a great brand and you want to keep your brand. So why couldn't you, if you carry this out to the furthest, hire Tesla as one of their factories to build you, the whole car, but then you put your brand and logo on it and you put your top, front and look and feel that you designed it, but everything else is built by Tesla.
So what's stopping them from doing that? So let's go product by product. In terms of autonomy, I don't think anyone in the industry has picked who the winner is going to be. Until there is a clear winner, I think it'd be premature to start making arrangements. In terms of buying batteries, that will happen in the future. I am confident, but the supply is insufficient. If Tesla had enough batteries to sell, they'd be buying fewer. In terms of skateboards, I think, yes, please.
Yeah, pause for a sec, because at Tesla's Twitter space yesterday, it was interesting to hear Jim Farley say, so right after Elon said, oh, by the way, we'd love to help you with other software needs that you might have. Jim Farley started talking about lithium refinery.
Oh,
He said, it's very interesting. Yeah. So
yeah.
they need to lock up their batteries, supplies, and all that supply chain. We're going to talk about supply chain shortly here, but
To conclude on that, the big thing you'd also asked who's next, and I think the answer is a small player, a Mitsubishi. Nissan doesn't have a great market share in the U.S. It might be them. Nissan, boy, I tell you, they had such a lead in electric vehicles and they just blew it. So I think it's going to be one of the smaller players.
Okay. And you were going to go through the products. So you went through batteries.
Oh,
What was
the other
section?
products? The next one was white label vehicles. That's something that car companies have done for a long time. The Nissan Quest prior to, I think, the 2007 year was a Ford. Ford made it, and it didn't look like a Ford. It just was a little minivan, and that's not unusual. The Geo Metro, the Chevy Sprint, Chevy and Geo didn't make that. I think that was made by Suzuki or something. So when will we get to that point? I don't know. I don't know if Tesla would even do it, because Tesla wants to make one car one way, and that's amazing. And I think those companies would want something cut rate that Tesla would not want to put their name on. But in the age of information, their name is on it. There's no getting around who built a car these days.
Yeah, you make a good point there. But the counterpoint to that is, if you look at, and I'm totally just leaping here, leap of faith and this thinking, their Gen 3 platform, the next Gen 3 platform is modular design. It's how they're putting things together. Now it's just a faster way to create a car, so it's going to be cheaper. And I'm totally banking on the idea that it's going to be modular. So if they want a 2-person car, if they want a 4-person car, if they want a 12-person car, like these are pieces of it that can be snapped together like Lego pieces. And that's one of the reasons why they went to this new model of creating different pieces and snapping it together. That's a guess on my part. So if they do that, and they talk about the factory as the product, and you hear that Tom Juice thinks that once we get this factory in Giga Mexico going, we're just going to replicate it like crazy. You know what I mean? Like, why? And then if if Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition, why wouldn't they be offering and really making it attractive for other car brands to come in and say, hey, we'll put your car brand on it. I mean, and it's a leap, because like you said, that they probably sell every Tesla that they make. So there's no need for them to do this ever. But it's just, I don't know.
Not ever. When they start bumping up against 10 million, they can still build more factories. If Ford had customers for 10 or 20 or 50 million cars, it's been 100 years. They could build the factories. They just don't have the customers. And if Ford could white label a 500,000 cars to each manufacturer, they would. So not never, just not now. Yeah. It's something that could happen.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to the next partnership announcement, and I think we're going to start hearing more and more of these. And that's what I'm excited for the second half of this year. I think it's going to happen. I think when the first kind of happens, it opens the floodgates, because that's why I'm saying that the first company that partners with Tesla with batteries, then the others, they're all they're it's like a musical chairs. There's only enough seats in the table, and eventually it's like, you better jump now before the others jump ahead of you. And so it's going to get faster and faster. So them partnering with the Superchargers, I think there'll be another one fast follow.
If your company said, the all new EV, whatever, battery management by Tesla, BMS by Tesla, that would be a selling point. And all it is Tesla saying, we're going to dedicate our engineers to making sure that this battery is managed to a degree that Tesla would consider acceptable. I think that would be an interesting one, and they would pay for that. They should.
Remember
it's worth something.
The Mercedes partnership with Tesla way back when?
Oh yeah.
Powertrains.
That was fun. Yeah. The little electric Smart 4.2, the RAV4 was another one. Some of those are still around.
Yeah, so it's not unprecedented that these big brands have partnered with Tesla in the past to build them components of the car. So, okay, it's fun to speculate, but those were a little bit less likely. So this just came out this morning. Jeff Lutz kind of broke it, saying that the Tesla supply chain is rated in the top 25 of Gartner 2023 survey. And this is highly respected survey, the Gartner survey of the best supply chains out there. This is well-deserved recognition of Tesla's supply chain excellence and evident through enabling the industry-leading ramp of electric vehicles and overcoming pandemic challenges. So if you look at this table here, that's a table, I don't know, what do you call this? The pyramid. The top 25 for 2023, Tesla falls right here, number 14. The only car manufacturer there. And what strikes me when I look at this is that, you know, Tesla is really just an early, like just a little young teenager. What is it, 20 years old, just started only really in the last several years that it's actually gotten to true manufacturing of mass market cars. Finally started getting there, but they're competing against all these great brands that's been here forever, like Walmart and Coca-Cola and Johnson and Johnson and, you know, Pepsi, right? It's just boom. Look at that. We're right there.
And they're ahead of Nestle and McDonald's. That's amazing. It's a real testament. And I don't think they would have made this list were it not for the supply chain crunch showing what everyone's supply chain is actually made of. So this doesn't surprise me. And by the way, Jeff, if for those of you not following Jeff Lutz, great follow, highly recommend. He's a real gem. Tons of great stuff. Yeah, we've seen how they've managed it. I have an invitation to interview a gentleman who, let me grab his card here, is a professor. I'm not going to give away too much. Clinical associate professor, Department of Supply Chain Management. So I've got a real humdinger of an interview coming up soon that will go into this in great detail, I imagine.
Yeah. Why don't you speak a little bit about that? So what is it that Tesla has done that's industry leading? What sets them up to have lower costs of goods? What are these partnerships like? Yeah.
For the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, if I need a new, I need to order my chips. The chips come in. They control your door windows or something like that. If they don't work, what do I, we don't have them. You need something else. Ford needs to go out for bid to get the software rewritten. Meanwhile, Tesla says, ship me what you got and we'll have the firmware written by the time it gets here. So they're able to do that. Another supply chain bit of magic that some companies had to do during the pandemic was a lot of the suppliers would say, we can't spin up without a minimum order. So companies like Tesla would go out and find other customers to pool with to make the order large enough. And they would, so there's a lot of interesting solutions out there. And they would, go. Basically, it's the reason I need to have him on is because he can explain it better. But you can go up 2-3 steps and then over and then back down to find other people who might have it in a warehouse who can't build it. You bought them. I understand you bought a ton. There's no way you used them all. Give them to me. So, there's just a lot of smart people solving interesting puzzles.
One of the things you said before, which is that volume matters. And so if you are partnering, let's say, with batteries, then who's these battery makers want to partner with, right? A Tesla that can guarantee you 1 million of electric vehicles sold this year, 2 million next year, and 3.5 million the following year. And they're industry leading. Well, who are you going to partner and who are you going to give the longest, longer term contracts? Who are you going to give the biggest breaks? Who's going to be first that takes the majority of your supply, and then you'll give the rest to other partners.
At GM, what are they going to do? Cancel the Bolt? That came out of the left field. And if I was a supplier, I would be furious because I was counting on another 100,000 of these, 300, who knows? Thousands for sure, but more than zero. And there's a lot of.
So that's why I'm saying that the partnerships that we just heard here today with Ford and Tesla on the Supercharger network, I mean, you know, not quite the supply chain thing, but it sets the stage for these kind of things. That once you see these partnerships form, then you know the next one need to jump quickly, and then
Yeah.
they will
Uber's
expand it
already
to.
in.
I think, yeah,
Yeah, Uber with Hertz is already doing a Tesla partnership.
Right.
So there's a dedicated Tesla program for Uber drivers. It's great. Yeah.
okay.
And more will come.
Well, fantastic, great big news that happened just in the last 2 days. And then the presentation I did with Amy yesterday, there was other news. There's news of progress. Tesla continues to make progress, but not all of them make kind of this big splash news like we just had in the last 24 hours. But they're always continue to make progress, and so these things will add up, and they will make a difference, and it'll happen for us. So, yeah. Any last comments or thoughts about what we covered today, Brian?
No, I think you did a great job, Herbert. No, there's so much growth, there's so much opportunity. There's going to be a few more of these little partnerships, and it's you know, I'm very bullish.
Yeah. All right, folks. This is Brian White. He has his YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. He interviews folks that are, you know, he gets right into the weeds. If you want to know the details of the megapat of the factories, the gigafactories, everything like that, he's got deep dive interviews and analysis of that. So go check out his YouTube channel at MyTeslaWeekend. Thanks as always, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you guys joining every day. Appreciate it.